slip. Whereas if I soak this in water, it will. I could sit this in a bowl of water for a year and get it out, it'll be the same. I could put this in a bowl of water for 5 minutes and it'll be slip. Okay, so that's the first fire, and this is what ceramics is made out of. So like your coffee mugs and plates, this texture is really tough and it's a lot stronger now. So for first fire, it goes in the kiln and it's no longer as fragile. Right, you then glaze it, okay, and you'll put it back in the kiln and it'll come out. This will be your second fire or your glaze fire. So beside a glaze fire, you'll put second time in the kiln with glaze on it, and that'll be your finished project right there. And we'll talk more about glaze when we get there. Alright, so back to our video with leather hard. Back to our mask or our shield that we created in the last video. We're going to start talking about adding details, things like that. So we have our shield, and we're going to talk about our other two techniques, coil and pinch pot. So for coil, when you roll out a coil, move this over. When you roll out a coil, make sure your clay is workable. Alright, so at this point you might want to add a little water. If it's not, add a little water. Alright, and it's like making snakes in kindergarten, except there's a technique, and that is keep your hands parallel to the table. And if an area gets thinner, then the rest of the areas stay away from it. So you would only want to work with the thickest areas. And I'm just kind of pulling my hands out. And you can make a really smooth coil. But again, when an area, so like right now, an area gets too thin, you want to stay away from it. Just keep working your hands out. Alright, coils are really nice for adding edges. So if you want something to be a little thicker or have a ledge, you could do something like that. It's really nice for adding textures onto your clay. You would want to flatten that out or cut it off using your needle tool. In that video I showed you earlier, she used coils to create kind of like tentacles, and she went in and pressed little holes into her coil, kind of like that, which made a cool effect. Alright, but anytime you want to add two objects together, you have to use slip. And you have to also scratch. So if I want to add this on there, I would mark where it's going to be, and then I'd go in there and scratch all around, use my slip, get some of that slip, some of that really mushy clay, and that's going to be your glue. So you'll lay your glue down, and that's how it'll stick. An object may look like it's sticking on there without scratching and slipping, but when I get it out of the kiln, it's going to fall off. You have to scratch and slip. Otherwise it will not stay on after the first fire. Alright, if you're wanting to add details that you printed from the computer, so you have a reference image for that. I had one, I just printed out some stars as my example. So I'm going to use some of my workable clay. I'm going to roll out a little slab. Alright. So let's say you have your reference image printed out or drawn out. You can draw it. Lay your image over, and you can transfer it just like we did our mast shape, our shield. And this is true for words or anything else. Okay. And then you would cut that out. Now this is kind of small. But really from this point on, you're just going to be adding little details, adding whatever it is you want to add to it. Now that looks kind of rough right now, but when that gets, once we get that stuck on there, scratch both sides and slip, add your slip, your glue. That's when you can use all kinds of tools to go in there and smooth out. And remember the videos we watched on craftsmanship. And I'm not going to take up too much time, but remember those videos when we talked about craftsmanship, really smoothing out and taking your time. Alright, so smooth is just one texture of many. And I have a whole container of different textures, and they're in a basket that looks like this, full of containers, full of textures. So one texture, like I said, is smooth, and one way of getting something smooth is by using these sponges, which are in your tool containers. If you get a little bit of water on your sponge and wring it all that water out, so you're getting water in, but you're wringing it all out, as much water out as possible, because you don't want to wet your clay, you're just trying to smooth it out. You can use that sponge to go in there and create smooth texture. Alright? However, if you don't want it to have a smooth texture, there's some options. One of those are these little texture templates that I have. And you can actually go and press texture into your clay. And that's kind of hard to see in the video. I'll do a bigger. Let me do a bigger texture so you can see. And you can actually roll it into or press it. Just gotta be careful not to mess up the shape of your mask. But that one's a lot easier to see how you can press that texture into your clay. You can use that texture as a starting point, and you can actually go in there and carve around, kind of like that video, and dig some of these shapes out of there, just like she did in that video, and go in there and make it even more texturized and interesting. Alright, so the only thing I really haven't shown you, I guess, is leather hard and how to use that. So I've made some objects that I let get to leather hard. One in which, is a handle. Okay, so if you're making a handle or some shape like that, like for the back of your shield, before you attach that, you would want to let it get to leather hard so it's not like flopping around. And once that got to leather hard, that's when you would attach it on the back of here, and it would keep its shape. Okay, so don't attach anything that's you're wanting to come way up or way out unless it's gotten to leather hard, so it'll keep its shape. And again, to attach it, you got to score and slip. All right. So, like for instance, if you wanted this circle shape kind of protruding out of like that, you would want it to be at leather hard. Alright. I do want to point out some things that'll help make your project more interesting. If you have some objects coming out and some projects being dug in, and some projects even further out, and then some objects actually coming off of your project. Sorry, I have to move it over. That's going to make your project a lot more interesting. Alright, so try to think outside of your norm. And details is the main thing. And craftsmanship. So details and craftsmanship. Like for your shield, smoothing out, things like that. You can also create your own textures. So I had started down here. If you wanted to just go in and draw and carve out, or if you want me to print out some patterns for you to put on there, we can do that. But there's all kinds of stuff you can do inside of these shapes. Alright, so I had a student one time who made a bug shape, and he wanted, so what I did for this, I rolled out a slab and I put it over a mold, and then you could actually add your legs or your feet or whatever else it is. And you, as long as they're not leather hard yet, you could shape them and have them protrude out. So there's a lot of cool stuff you can do to add details to this based off of your design. Alright, so I talked about the stages. Only thing I haven't talked about is pinch pot, so I'll do that real quick. I'm going to make a tiny little pinch pot. You probably made these in elementary school, but when you're making a pinch pot, you want to start with a ball of clay. You want to press your thumb into the clay, and it is what it says it is. You're going to pinch it out. So I'm taking and pinching around. Alright, anything thicker than your pinky will explode in the kiln. That moisture inside of there will not have any way of getting out. It'll be too thick. So if you want to put like balls of clay on here, that's going to be thicker than your pinky. They need to be hollow. So that would be one reason you would use pinch pot. And you would go and scratch and slip to add things like that on. But it don't have to be round. I mean, let's say you wanted like some really big spikes. You can always go and pinch the top up and create all kinds of cool, looks like a Hershey Kiss,